Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Chiefskate, and welcome to another episode of Way of the Underhive. This series is dedicated to helping brand new players to Necromunda build their starting rosters and learn more about the game mechanics of their favorite gangs. And on today's episode, we will discuss playing a Malstrain Corrupted Gang in your campaigns of Necromunda Hive Secundus. We will discuss the gang's compositions, their fighters and weapons of Wargear, how they operate in the Underhells campaign, strengths and weaknesses, and provide a 1,000 credit starting roster for your first campaign of Hive Secundus. So why would you want to play a Malstrain Corrupted Gang? The reason why is because you want the best of both worlds. Not only do you want to play an already established gang as well, but you also want to be able to access the brand new Malstrain Brood Scum, the Termites, the Coalescent, as well as the Gene Stealer, and you want to combine into something horrific and unspeakable in the depths of Hive Secundus. You're hearing whispers from the darkness, there's strange geometry that makes no sense, and the structures that you live in, and the colors that you see are indescribable. Basically, your typical H.P. Lovecraft inspired eldritch horror type gameplay. So that being said, let's go ahead and talk about exactly what the strengths and weaknesses of the playing a Malstrain Corrupted Gang is. Alright, so first of all, let's talk about the strengths of playing a Malstrain Corrupted Gang. You have access to Malstrain Gene Stealers, Convalescents, as well as Brood Scum. I forgot to mention you also get access to Termites as well. These are really strong buffs, and at the same time, really strong brutes that you can add to your gang. The Gene Stealer is actually a one-man wrecking machine, absolutely destroying opponents in close combat. The Convalescence gives you access to different types of psychic abilities as well. The Termites are great for seizing initiative and seizing objectives and flying around causing problems. Not to mention, you also have access to Brood Scum, which are actually quite cheap, all things considered. They cost just a little bit more than a juvie level fighter, but they can actually do quite more than what your typical juvie fighters can do, and at the same time could be potentially cheaper to play a Malstrain Corrupted Gang. If you have access to like Gene Stealer Cultists, for example, or if you have some Gene Stealer type miniatures lying around, you could just add it to a gang that you currently possess, and you can save a lot of money by doing so. Now, while there are many strengths to a Malstrain Corrupted Gang, there are also some pretty significant weaknesses. Now, while the Malstrain Gene Stealer and the Coalescences are really great, they're also extremely expensive as well. The Gene Stealer itself costs 270 credits to recruit, and the Coalescence costs 155 credits, so you do have to keep that in mind as well. Another weakness, of course, is that you can't take any gang-specific exotic beasts or brutes. So, for example, let's pretend you're a Cawdor gang that becomes a Malstrain Corrupted Cawdor gang. You have no access to Sheen Birds, for example. At the same time, you don't have access to the Stick Shamblers, so you do have to keep that in mind. Your host gangs, typical exotic beasts and brutes, are unavailable to you as well. At the same time, you're also automatically outlaw status, but in Hive Secundus, does it really matter? Not really. It does matter outside of Hive Secundus, but if you're playing in Underhells, no one really cares. So let's exactly talk about the gang composition that makes up a Malstrain Corrupted Gang. So you could choose one of the 6 original house gangs in order to be a Malstrain Corrupted Gang. You could also use a Bad Zone Enforcers as well. So if you're a really big fan of playing those, nice little fit here. In fact, we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we get to our starting roster. You could also play a Corpse Grinder cult that is also affected by the Malstrain Gene Stealers, and that is even more terrifying. If the Corpse Grinder cultists were not bad enough as it is, they can now take Malstrain Gene Stealers, which makes it even more terrifying to face against. And of course, if you also want to play a Paladin Enforcer gang, you can also actually do this as well. So you're kind of spoiled for choices about being a Malstrain Corrupted Gang. Now, it is kind of sad that you can't be outcasts in order to be a Malstrain Corrupted Gang, but that's perfectly fine. I can understand the reason for that. I'm so sorry, but the outcasts are my personal favorite type of game to play, just because of the amount of flexibility you have in that group, but I can understand where they're coming from, just kind of limiting to these groups. So when it comes to your fighters, weapons, and war gear, you still have the same access of fighters, weapons, and war gear of your base gang. So for example, if you're playing Paladin Enforcers, all the normal things you'd get as a Paladin Enforcer are able to be used, except for the Sanctioner Pattern Automaton, which is your house-specific brute. Same thing with your Cyber Mastiff, which is your exotic beast for your gang. So you want to be able to get those, for example. At the same time, you can also upgrade the leader of your gang to be a Psyker as well for 35 extra credits. And at the same time, you can also recruit up to 3 Malstrain Gene Stealers, up to 1 Malstrain Coalescence, up to 2 Termites for your leaders and your champions, and you can also recruit an unlimited amount of Brood Scum for your gang as well. In my opinion, there's actually one very specific gang that actually maximizes these abilities, but we'll talk about that a little more in detail when we get to the starting roster. Now, when it comes to your Malstrain Corrupted Gangs and the Underhells, you have to be a Malstrain Allegiance. Now, technically speaking, this is not a total requirement. I was looking at the rules for allegiances, and nowhere does it say that being a Malstrain Corrupted Gang, you automatically become a Malstrain Allegiance. Narratively speaking, it would make sense for you to be that, because from narrative basis, being possessed by Gene Stealers automatically makes you want to defend Hive Secundus. But if you really wanted to, there's nothing really that's stopping you from being an Archeo Hunter if you wanted to with your Malstrain Corrupted Gangs. However, with that being said, I would recommend sticking with the Malstrain Allegiance, and the reason why that's the case is because you get additional 400 credits for recruiting fighters who are either crew, vehicles, or fighters who are mounted. And the reason why I recommend doing that is because in the Underhells campaign, you get 1,000 credits to start off with, and if you want to get Gene Stealers in this Malstrain Corrupted Gang, that's a huge credit sink for your gang. So my recommendation for you is to actually take the Malstrain Allegiance, so that way you can recruit fighters and just give them a Waster's dirt bike, so that way they can use that dirt bike on the scenarios that require to use vehicles, and then for the scenarios that don't require vehicles, they leave the bikes at home and can still play on the tabletop. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds in my opinion. It's a great way to counter the low number of fighters you'll have in your gang because of the expensive cost of the Malstrain elements in your gang. At the same time, you also have a +1 or -1 modifier when you roll on the Roaming Horrors table, and the Roaming Horrors table, of course, is the NPCs that attack both sides on a battlefield. So having the ability to weaken or lessen the number of roaming horrors you got to face is indescribably valuable. So that part is quite nice. At the same time, you do get some buffs for the Madness special rules that are available in the Underhells campaign. For Ghost of the Dead special rule, you actually suffer -1 to all nerf tests, which isn't as bad as it was if you're playing a straight Malstrain gang. And the reason why is because a lot of gangs, especially like, for example, Goliath, for example, have excellent cool stats. So having that -1 to your nerf test, not so bad. Just kind of depends on what your base gang is and to see how bad that would be. Now, for the Echoes in the Abyss special rule, you actually are unaffected by it because you're already halfway crazy by being corrupted by Gene Stealers, and when you get to the very bottom level with Shadow of the Broodmine, you actually get +1 to your nerf tests, and the reason why is because you are corrupted by Gene Stealers, so being closer to the Broodmine just makes you that much more resilient, psychologically speaking. Now, the Desolation rules are going to be kind of a bit of a pain for you in your Underhells campaign. For example, the limited trade rule means that you can't access gang equipment lists or add fighters after you create your gang, so that is a bit of a problem. Plus, you got to suffer the +6 rarity value on all items if you want to purchase them from the trading post, so you do have to worry about that. Now, when you get to the cutoff from the world level, though, for Desolation, not so bad. I mean, yeah, you still can't access gang equipment lists or add fighters, but the rarity values, though, are only a +2, so it's not that bad. So if you want to get that odd piece of equipment or Wargear for your gang, it's a lot easier for you to do that the lower you go in the Underhells campaign. So with that being said, let's talk about the starting roster I would recommend for your gang. Now, for your Malstrain Corrupted Gang, I would recommend going with Bad Zone Enforcers, oddly enough. Bad Zone Enforcers actually benefit the most from being a Malstrain Corrupted Gang, especially for your campaigns of Necromunda, Hive Secundus, and the reason why is because of the fighters that are available to you. You still have access to the typical Bad Zone Enforcer captains, sergeants, as well as patrolmen. But the thing that really handicapped a Bad Zone Enforcer gang, though, were the Hive Scum they recruited, because the Hive Scum were expendable and could not be activated with group activations. That has always been the problem with a Bad Zone Enforcer gang. However, with the new rules attached for the Malstrain Corrupted Gang, that is no longer the problem, because you don't have to buy regular Hive Scum, enlisted Hive Scum for your gangs. You can buy Brood Hive Scum instead, and Brood Hive Scum are not subject to that expendable special rule, which means they can now be used for group activations as well. So that's going to be a huge benefit in order to help out your gang to be even deadlier on the tabletop. You can recruit more fighters, group activate them as well. At the same time, you can also buff your gang with some additional Malstrain elements in order to help them out. So let's talk about your leader real quick. So you're going to have a Bad Zone Enforcer captain. This can cost you 210 credits. Now this fighter will be the leader of your gang as well. They automatically come in the armored undersuit, but you're going to purchase mesh armor for them to give them that 4-up armor save, as well as a concussion carbine to use as a special weapon, because having a 3-inch blast template weapon is just amazing. Having a stub gun for a backup weapon as well as manacles automatically. Now you're going to upgrade your fighter to be a Psyker upgrade, and you give them the Technomancy discipline. And the reason why you're doing that is because you want the Techno Affinity ability, which allows you to reroll field ammo rolls. But the main reason why you want this guy is for the Manipulate Lumens power. And the reason why you want that ability is because when you get to the darkness of the Underhells, being able to see in the dark is going to be really, really important for fighters. You may not be able to do so too much because photo goggles are extremely expensive. So if you have the Manipulate Lumen's ability, you can take a double action, pass a cool willpower test, and then boom, the lights are all on, which means now you can see your opponents and now attack your opponents so long as you're playing in the depths of Hive Secundus. So that's a really powerful ability. At the same time, once you get enough enough credits to get photo goggles for your gang, you can turn the lights off and make it even more difficult for your enemies. At the same time, you're going to give this guy the Got Your 6 skill as well, because it kind of acts like a lessened, weakened version of Overwatch, so that way you can actually open fire with your concussion carbine at enemies who try to charge either your fighter or other fighters in your gang, which is extremely valuable. Now, for your next champions, you're going to have 2 champions in this gang. You have Bad Zone Enforcer Sergeant number 1, so it costs you 135 credits. This fighter is a champion with armor undersuit mesh armor for 4-up armor save. You're giving this guy a sniper rifle, so that way they can reach out across the battlefield and attack people. You're giving him manacles, so that way they can arrest people, as well as the fast shot ability, so this way this guy can fire twice with a sniper rifle. My suggestion to you as the campaign develops, either get an infra sight or a photo goggles for your Enforcer Sergeant number 1, so that way they can see better in all visibility conditions. Now, Bad Zone Enforcer Sergeant number 2 is going to cost 230 credits. This fighter is going to have an armor undersuit mesh armor for a 4-up armor save. You're also giving them a web gun, because having a strength 5 template weapon is invaluable. You're giving a stub gun for a backup weapon. He's also got magnicals as a backup weapon as well. And you're giving this guy the hip shooting ability, so that way he can move twice and then open fire with his web gun. Now, granted, when you do hip shooting, you do suffer -1 hit penalty with your gun, but since it's a template weapon, it doesn't matter because it automatically hits. A very, very deadly combination with template weapons is using the hip shooting skill. After that, you're going to have 3 Bad Zone Patrolmen because you're required to do so. Because for every single sergeant and captain you have in your gang, you must have a patrolman in order to balance them out. So Bad Zone Patrol number 1, 2, and 3 cost all exactly the same at 90 credits apiece, but they're equipped differently. Bad Zone Enforcer Patrolman number 1 has got armor undersuit mesh armor for a 4-up armor save. They also have an auto gun, as well as a stub gun for a backup weapon, and manacles in order to attack your enemies. Patrolman number 2 is also to cost 90 credits, armor undersuit and mesh armor for a 4-up armor save. They have a last gun as well as a stub gun for a backup weapon and manacles. And then lastly, Bad Zone Patrolman number 3 is going to have an armor undersuit as well as mesh armor and a sawn-off shotgun, as well as a stub gun for a backup weapon as well as manacles. Now, these guys will be fighting at the medium to close range with their last guns, auto guns, and sawn-off shotguns. My suggestion to you is equip these guys with some grenades as soon as you possibly can. Probably frag grenades. Blasting charges would be better, but try to go with frag grenades if you're able to as well. Also, get these guys some photo goggles so that we can see in all visibility conditions, and give them better ammunition. For example, for the last gun guy, give him a hot shot blast gun, maybe electric rounds for your auto gun wielding guy, as maybe solid slug shots for your sawn-off shotgun. Make these guys a little bit more deadly. Now let's talk about your Malstrain Brood Scum, which is the secret sauce of this list as well. Now these guys will be able to join your gang, and the reason why is because of the additional 400 credits you get for being a Malstrain Allegiance. And these guys also are not subject to the enlisted Hive Scum special rule, which means these guys can be used for group activations. They can also use the psychology stats of your champions and your leaders as well. And you're able to buy these guys because you're going to mount them on Wasters dirt bikes. So that way, if you don't have to use these guys on a battle that requires vehicles, they can still be on foot and still play on the tabletop. So Brood Scum number 1 is going to cost you 125 credits. This guy's got an auto gun as well as frag grenades as well as a Waster's dirt bike. Malstrain Brood Scum number 2's got 140 credits. It's got a shotgun with solid and scatter ammo, frag grenades as well as a Waster's dirt bike. And Malstrain Brood Scum number 3's got to cost 135 credits. It's got 200 axe as well as frag grenades as well as a Waster's dirt bike. Mount these guys on vehicles when they're driving around so that way they can fight, have them lob grenades at your enemies, and also shoot at them when they dismount. And if you're fighting with these guys dismounted, have them run around, throw grenades, and shoot at your opponents as well. I suggest getting these guys better armor as your campaign develops. Maybe getting some mesh armor would be quite helpful. Also get them some better close combat weapons like flails, for example, or pistols with like stub guns with dum-dum rounds, or another perfect example of weapon that you could use. So just equip these guys accordingly. And finally, the last member of your gang is your Malstrain Coalescence. It's going to cost you 155 credits for this one. This guy's also going to be a champion level fighter as well, but he's more like a brute rather than a champion. He's got flak armor as well as feeder tendrils for close combat. He's got the flight abilities so that way he can move across levels very quickly. He's got the Shadow of the Malstrain to give him psychic abilities, as well as the Xenos Abomination special rule so that way he can't make any post-battle action sequences. He does have Evade, which makes him hard to shoot at when he's moving across the battlefield, and he also has the Catalyst ability, which means that any fighter within 12 inches of this guy, when they go out of action before they do, they can either shoot or do a fight action before they go out of action, which is kind of nice because that way you have a lot of shooting elements in this gang, and having to be able to get off some shots before you go away, invaluable as well. And this is the reason why, the nice thing about this, and this is the reason why I think Bad Zone Enforcers are the perfect Malstrain Corrupted Gang, because you get a coalescence like this that gives you psychic abilities, gives you some buffs to your gang. At the same time, you still have a lot of manpower on the tabletop that can still shoot. You replace the old Hive Scum with the new Brute Scum, so that way they can be part of group activations. It's just a match made in heaven, in my opinion. And I think that the Bad Zone Enforcers actually benefit the most from being Malstrain Corrupted. So in conclusion, Malstrain Corrupted Gangs have the ultimate potential to have a lot of fun. After all, having a bunch of different gang members, like, can you imagine like having like Caldor fighters who are also Malstrain Corrupted? Like, they don't listen to the Emperor, they listen to the Warp, and they listen, not the Warp, sorry, they listen to the Hive Mind, and that's what they listen to. Or having like Delax, for example, right? Delax already pretty freaky enough as it is. You throw some Malstrain Genestealer cults in front of them, it's make it even better as well. It's kind of like having the best of having Xenos as well as traditional gangs and combining them together as well. For example, Bad Zone Enforcers, quite competitive now because now they have the ability to take Brute Scum, so they can be really, really deadly on the tabletop. After all, seeing these new combinations is only going to bring a lot of variety to the game of Necromunda, and Necromunda is already a pretty wild game with a variety of stuff that you can put onto it, so adding more crazy things like this is going to make the game even more enjoyable and more random and more crazy, and seeing all kinds of cool and unusual gang lists that you usually don't typically see. Variety is the spice of life, so I'm really looking forward to see exactly what players come up with. And because new information is coming out from Hive Secundus as time goes on, we will also make new videos to address those concerns, so stay tuned for any new future content that deals with this topic. So that's good with you guys. I will catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.